In this ward, the clock just started ticking. On a quiet Friday in May 2017, a digital wildfire leapt across the world. It didn't knock, it walked through the front door. This wasn't just ransomware, it rode a stolen cyber weapon, EternalBlue, an advanced zero-day exploit linked to the NSA, leaked into the wild. One vulnerable machine, one open path, and it jumped. Again and again and again. Hospitals diverted ambulances. Surgeries paused. Companies shuttered systems. Minutes mattered, and the malware was faster. But buried in its DNA was a secret, a kill switch. A single domain name that, if found and triggered, could stop the fire mid-breath. How did a nation-grade exploit escape the lab? Who lit the match? And how did an unexpected keystroke yank the plug? Roll back the tape. This is how it happened. Before hospitals went dark, it began here. With secrets, intelligence agencies love 0 days. Flaws no one else knows about. 0 days of warning. 0 days to patch. A master key that opens doors the world thinks are locked. Each undisclosed flaw is a choice. Share it and close the hole for everyone. Or keep it and walk in whenever you like. Offense or defense. Access or safety. One of those keys targeted a workhorse protocol, SMB version 1, the file-sharing spine of countless Windows networks, talking over port 445. Inside that old code lived a memory corruption bug, a hairline crack in a heavy steel door. Send a carefully crafted transaction to the SMB file-sharing service, and Windows mishandles memory just enough for an attacker to snatch the wheel. Before any login, before any password, pre-auth, remote, wormable. And once that first machine tips, it doesn't stop there. The new foothold turns the host into a launcher, scanning its neighbors and firing the same malformed payload again and again, spreading across the network like sparks on dry grass. The exploit built for that bug got a codename, EternalBlue. It didn't pick locks, it bypassed the doorframe. From a single packet stream to code execution in the kernel. March 14th, 2017. Microsoft ships MS-17-010, quietly fixing brittle flaws in SMBv1. No headlines, just a lifeline if you take it. April 14th, 2017. The shadow brokers dump NSA-linked tools onto the open internet. EternalBlue slips the leash. May 12th, 2017. WannaCry detonates worldwide. Hospital screens turn red. Factories halt. Help desks light up. As one worm races across networks in hours. 59 days from quiet patch to global panic. By the time the tool spilled, the hole was technically patched. But patches don't help machines that never receive them. And out there were millions. Legacy systems, forgotten servers, hospital desktops left untouched because downtime can cost lives. The leak wasn't just theory, it was turnkey code, a fence in a box, EternalBlue to break in, a stealth backdoor called Double Pulsar to load payloads. Suddenly, top-shelf tradecraft was point and click. That's the paradox of hoarding 0 days. As long as they stay secret, they're power. The instant they leak, they become fire, and the world is full of dry timber. Within weeks, someone wired EternalBlue to a different motive, profit at scale. Not stealthy espionage, but loud, automated extortion, ransomware with a jet engine. Here's the loop. Scan the internet, find 445, hit EternalBlue, land kernel level code, install a service that copies itself, then fans out across the local network faster than humans can react. And WannaCry wasn't using a still secret 0 day anymore. It was abusing a once secret one that many hadn't fixed. A patched vulnerability is harmless in theory, but deadly in practice when patching lags behind exploitation. Defense moves at calendar speed, change approvals, maintenance windows, compatibility fears. Offense moves at network speed, milliseconds between packets. This is the origin story. A 0 day discovered and kept. A patch released, but not everywhere. A leak that armed the world. And a worm that turned a surgical exploit into a global outage. We've met the flaw, the patch, the leak. The fuse is burning. For 59 days, the clock ticks while unpatched machines sleep. Then Friday arrives, and theory hits reality. The quiet crack becomes a shockwave. D-Day. WannaCry steps onto the stage, riding EternalBlue and turning one weak link into a chain reaction. Inside one NHS trust, one vulnerable Windows box meets one open door, an aging SMBv1 service listening before login. No phishing needed, no passwords guessed, just a legacy protocol at the front gate and a worm that outruns the help desk. The first compromise becomes a megaphone. The infected host pings its neighbors and repeats the trick, turning one weak spot into many. Ward PCs, lab machines, reception terminals, one by one they tip. Pre-auth reach, remote execution, automatic spread. Minutes, not hours. Screens lock, appointments stall, and the network map blooms red as the malware follows shared paths across a flat network, room to room, floor to floor. Ambulances rerouted, non-urgent care delayed. Staff revert to paper. Not because files are stolen, but because files are locked, instantly, at scale. Screens flicker to ransom notes. Electronic charts freeze mid-scroll. Scheduling stalls, pharmacy queues back up. Lab results wait in limbo as systems refuse to load. Clipboards reappear, whiteboards fill, and phones become the workflow. Printers fall silent, barcodes can't be scanned, and every click hits a dead end. The data is still there, but the doors to it are bolted. This isn't theft, it's paralysis, applied to an entire hospital at once. Once inside, it goes to work. It hunts the everyday files, documents, spreadsheets, photos, and locks them with strong encryption. Then the message appears. A ransom note demanding Bitcoin, a countdown clock hissing down the seconds, and a promise, pay or lose it all. Before anyone can hit undo, it yanks out the safety net, deleting local shadow copies so the easy restore path disappears. And it won't sit still. It scans the internal network for other vulnerable machines, repeats the move, and turns one compromised box into a neighborhood outbreak. This is loud extortion, not subtle espionage. The moment one endpoint falls, the hallway follows, if the network is flat. By lunchtime, multiple trusts report incidents. Not all are hit. Where segmentation holds and the patch is applied, the fire meets walls. Elsewhere, it finds corridors, flat networks, aging Windows boxes, shared file shares. It jumps along mapped drives, follows service accounts, and rides SMB from ward to ward. In the hardened sites, blast doors close, infected hosts are quarantined, and the flames gutter out. In the soft ones, every open share is kindling, and the infection chart blooms. Surgery here, imaging there, a reception desk 3 floors away. Help desks triage, admins race to push the patch, and some teams do the brutal thing, pull the plug, to carve emergency air gaps. By mid-afternoon, the map is a patchwork. Green where patching and segmentation is held, amber where containment bites, red where the worm still finds a path. This isn't a targeted spear. The worm sprays the internet for port 445, lands where patching lags, and then floods laterally. One exploit chain, many motives disrupted. It doesn't ask who you are. It speaks only in open ports and timeouts. No lure, no login, just a socket and a push. It ricochets off firewalls, finds a stray server in a branch office, slips into the LAN, and fans out through shares and forgotten hosts. Universities, shipping depots, clinics, city halls. Whoever left the door ajar learns the same lesson at the same speed. It isn't stealing blueprints, it's jamming gears. Appointments miss, invoices stall, production lines wait for screens to unfreeze. All it needs is one exposed service, one old protocol, one missing patch, and from there, sideways is just gravity. Broad spray, narrow floor. Global blast radius. Defense tries to schedule downtime. Offense needs milliseconds between packets. Blue teams open calendars, file change requests, wait for sign-offs. The worm doesn't wait. It moves at wire speed, hopping across subnets while meetings start and emails bounce. Humans coordinate, code executes. Maintenance windows are measured in days. Exploit windows are measured in round-trip time, the blink it takes a packet to leave and come back. By the time a patch plan is approved, the payload has already slipped down the corridor and knocked on the next door. Security is paperwork and pauses. Malware is momentum. One side seeks a quiet hour, the other needs a single heartbeat. This is the asymmetry. While the world burned, one researcher pulled a thread, a tiny string buried in the code that would be the strangest of all, to ask a question before it attacked. Inside the chaos, there was a pause, a whisper to a nonsense web address. Is anyone there? If silence answered, the malware lunged. If it heard a voice, it backed away. He circled that oddity, traced the calls, and wondered, what if the door answered back? One line of text, one yes or no, a question mark in the path of a fire. There it was, not a command server, not a brand, a nonsense domain, long, unregistered, unreachable. Inside the binary, there's a strange speed bump, a hard-coded, gibberish-looking domain name. Before a single file is touched, the malware phones home the old-fashioned way, DNS first, then a plain HTTP GET on port 80. If something answers, it slams the brakes and exits. If the line is dead, it takes that silence as a green light, and the encryption and worming begin. It looks like a sandbox test. Are we being watched? But in the wild, it behaved like a kill switch. For hours, most machines heard nothing back, so the failure branch lit up everywhere. Then, a researcher spotted the string, registered the domain, and suddenly, millions of checks got a real response. The outbreak hit the brakes, buying time for defenders. One brittle check, two branches. Yes means stop, no means chaos. So he did something counterintuitive. He bought the domain and pointed it at a sinkhole server, a safe endpoint that simply answered. This wasn't a magic decryptor. It was a break. The moment that domain responded, every new copy of the malware that could reach the internet hit the check and quit. A sinkhole turns a dead address into a safe one. The hard-coded gibberish domain now resolves to a researcher-controlled server. The infected host calls out, DNS resolve, then a plain HTTP GET on port 80, and gets a simple answer back, 200 OK. That success flips the branch. Alive means exit, silence means encrypt and spread. Across the world, those pings begin to land, like rain on a roof, and each successful reply pulls a fuse before the payload can fire. It doesn't fix a single locked file, and it can't reach machines cut off from the internet, or variants that change the check. But it slows the front edge of the wave and buys defenders precious hours. A nonsense string becomes a stoplight, green for quit, red for chaos. Across telemetry feeds, the curve kinked. Not to zero, never to zero, but enough to turn a sprint into a stumble. The sinkhole lit up like a Christmas tree, every callback to a machine that would have moved on to encryption but didn't, because the check passed. There were limits. Corporate firewalls that blocked outbound web traffic meant the request failed, and the malware charged ahead. Already infected machines stayed locked. The brake only catches the next car, not the one already skidding. But the breathing room was real. With the fire slowed, responders could do the gritty work, isolate subnets, push MS17-010, disable SMBv1, and prepare clean restores. Adversaries noticed. Variants appeared, new hard-coded domains, or no check at all. Some were sinkholed quickly, others sputtered. None matched the first wave's timing or reach. Because by then, the world was moving. SPS rate limited 445. Enterprises yanked cables. Patches rolled in anger. The easy kindling had already burned. By then, the digital landscape was in a state of rapid flux. Internet service providers, recognizing the inherent vulnerabilities, began to actively rate limit access to port 445, a critical entry point for network attacks. Simultaneously, proactive enterprises, having learned from previous breaches, systematically yanked network cables from devices that posed a risk, isolating them from potential exploits. In a furious scramble to secure their systems, emergency patches were rolled out with unprecedented speed and aggression, attempting to stem the tide of ongoing attacks. The initial period of easy exploitation, where readily available vulnerabilities allowed for widespread compromise, had effectively ended. The easy kindling for attackers had already burned, leaving behind a more resilient, albeit still challenged, digital environment. This shift marked a significant turning point in cybersecurity, forcing attackers to evolve their tactics and organizations to prioritize a more robust defense. Was it a deliberate off-switch, or a clumsy anti-sandbox trick? In some sandboxes, every domain resolves, fooling malware into quitting. Either way, the outcome was the same. A single registration key turned a runaway worm into a containable incident. Call it luck, call it insight, call it both. But on that day, a line of nonsense text became a global circuit breaker. The kill switch didn't heal the damage, it bought time, and time, in an incident, is everything. When the noise faded, the counting began. Not just machines, but appointments, shifts, and paychecks. Across the NHS, the bill wasn't just ransom. It was downtime, overtime, and catching up on care. Clinics cancelled, operating theatres rebooked, scans deferred, follow-ups pushed to next month. Phones light up as teams call patients back, shuffle slots, and rebuild schedules by hand. Staff stay late to re-enter notes, reconcile paper with pixels, and clear the backlog that grew by the hour. IT works nights and weekends, isolate, wipe, re-image, restore from backups, patch, test, document, then do it again for the next ward. Ambulances reroute, mileage climbs, minutes stretch. Every delay ripples through tomorrow's list. Vendors are called, incident responders spin up, reports go to regulators, audits and lessons follow. The ransom was the headline. Recovery is the line where the zeros add up. Weeks of catch-up, paid in missed appointments, and tired staff. Worldwide, more than 200,000 machines in over 150 countries blinked the same demand. Telecoms, logistics, automakers, universities, anywhere patching trailed reality. The number you didn't see on the ransom screen, the recovery tab, counted in billions once the world added the lost hours, the overtime, and the rebuilds. Microsoft took an extraordinary step, issuing emergency fixes for unsupported systems like Windows XP and Server 2003. A quiet admission of a noisy truth. Critical infrastructure still ran on legacy code. Vendors hardened defaults. Enterprises blocked port 445 at the edge. Boards learned 3 new phrases: patch velocity, network segmentation, offline backups. And the policy world moved. If agencies keep 0 days, they hold keys and risks. After WannaCry, governments revisited how and when to disclose. The stockpile debate stepped into the light. Attribution followed. Investigators pointed to a state-linked group in North Korea. Geopolitics entered the chat. Statements, sanctions, and indictments because a hospital hallway had gone dark. The long tail twisted. Even after the headlines, the same exploit powered miners and botnets, WannaMine, TrickBot, picking over unpatched edges. Once capability escapes, it doesn't retire. It commoditizes. Impact isn't just the Fortune 500. It's a clinic with one server, a shop with one irreplaceable drive. For them, the difference between a headline and a closure was a backup, or the lack of one. WannaCry turned abstract risk into lived experience. It showed how a lab-grade exploit, a legacy protocol, and a patching gap can turn minutes into millions. It taught us that security isn't a product, it's a posture. Not a purchase, but a practice. The next crisis won't look the same, but it will rhyme. The question is, whether we remember the verses we learned when the screens went red. If this breakdown gave you something useful, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. Be safe on the internet, and I will see you next time.